Hi everyone, and welcome to today's video where we will go through the latest questions and the general topics of fog from, of course, the meteorology subject. So fog is a very interesting topic, and there are very many questions in the meteorology exam about types of fog and how they are created, how they dissipate. However, bear in mind that this is also an extremely practical one, and you will be deciphering types of fogs and metars and fog-related procedures in your aviation career for years to come. So it's good to remember and study this one as good as you can, as you'll see in the future that it will bring many benefits, and you'll be much ahead than your other colleagues who don't. However, just to begin with, let's revise what the fog is. Of course, the fog is nothing else but a cloud very close to the surface. So we have 5 key types of fog that you need to remember for the exams. And generally speaking, of course, this will be the radiation, the advection, the upslope or orographic fog. We have the frontal fog, and then we lastly have the evaporation or the Arctic smoke. So these are the 5 primary types of fog. Some other authorities distinguish between 7, so there are quite a few extra ones. However, these are the most important ones that you need to remember for your flying and for your exams. And lastly, before we begin, I just wanted to raise your attention to the fact that a fog will only be reported in a METAR if the visibility drops below 1000 meters. Anything above this, from 1000 to 5000 meters, will be a mist. So these are the water vapor related visibility reducing phenomena. We have mist from 1 to 5 kilometers, and below 1 kilometer we have fog. So with these basic introduction, I think we can jump into some of the latest questions from the actual exams. And we'll begin with question number 1. What kind of fog is often observed in the coastal region of Newfoundland in spring time? So you might look at this question and you might think, oh my god, this is quite ridiculous. The examiners want me to know what types of fogs are in some specific cities and countries. However, when you think about it, this is quite straightforward. And for the exams, there will be a few keywords that need to be remembered and can be remembered to decipher these questions. So always when you see coast, coastal region, port, big sea, 99% of the time, the correct answer will be the advection fog. So the advection fog, one of the main prerequisites for the advection fog will be moist air, and this is the easiest found when you are in a coastal region because, of course, there is a lot of sea. Generally speaking, advection fog will be warmer air being advected, so pushed over a colder surface. Advection fog is the opposite of Arctic smoke, where Arctic smoke is a colder air over a warmer surface. In this case, this will be water bodies, so lakes or even some seas. And also remember for these questions that radiation fog cannot really form overseas. So if you have a coastal region, there is a high chance that radiation fog will not be the case. Steam fog as well. These are very specific types of fogs, and usually the questions will give you much more detail if they want you to select steam fogs. And the same is true for frontal fogs. You need some more information to decipher whether the fog is frontal. The frontal fog will be created when you have a warmer mass of air above the colder one. So air, as the precipitation is coming down, it's cooling down to its dew point. And if the conditions are good, so if you have some light winds, the fog can form for a few hundred miles in front of the front surface. So now for question number 2. Which of the following is most likely to lead to the dissipation of radiation fog? So radiation fog, by the principle, will happen in most cases in the early mornings. It is caused when the surface is radiating its heat throughout the night. So the surface is then conducting the cold temperature to the air close by, and the air, as it cools because of the radiated surface, is also cooler. Then as it cools down, of course, down to dew point, a fog will eventually form. Some sources state that it's best for the radiation fog to have some very light winds of 2 to 3 knots because it helps with the mixing of the air, and so that it helps with the radiation fog. However, strong wind will always dissipate the radiation fog, as the strong wind will bring in the warmer air and mix it. So any wind above 5 knots most likely will support the dissipation rather than the formation of radiation fog. And here in the questions we have marked increase in wind velocity near the ground, I would say that wind is always a good option to choose when it comes to dissipation of the fog. As the air starts mixing, it starts warming up again, and then the fog disappears. For the radiation fog, this most likely will be the correct answer. And also remember for these questions that radiation fog can never be created over sea, because the water bodies, they hold heat much better than the surface. This is also the reason why the ITCZ, if you remember from climatology, doesn't really move and vary annually as much as it does over land, as air heats up and cools down much quicker. Now for question number 3. So what can contribute to the dissipation of orographic fog? So now we are in the realm of another fog type. So in this case, the orographic fog, or also called the upslope fog. So the upslope fog or the orographic fog is created in most cases when we have perpendicular wind towards a ridge or a higher mountain or a hill. And of course, as this air is pushed up, it cools automatically. And during that cooling, the moment it reaches the dew point, of course, the fog is created. And in order for this fog to dissipate, and the most common case when it dissipates is actually when that process is reversed. So of course, now if we have another wind blowing from another direction, or if the winds calm down and can no longer keep pushing the moist air up, in that case, the air will start going down. And as it goes down, it warms up katabatically. And this warming of air will bring the spread between the dew point and the temperature large enough for the condensation to disappear. And this, of course, will be a downslope wind, as of course the downslope wind will cause the heating of the air, and in effect the condensation will disappear. And now for question number 4. So this is a very interesting question, and there is a lot to talk about here. So I'll try to give you some tips for the questions about the reduced visibility and the reporting of the fog and the phenomena. So generally, as we already said in the beginning, remember that no visibility reducing phenomena will be reported in the matter unless they reduce the visibility to 5 kilometers or less. So you can have a very, in some extreme cases, light fog that will reduce the visibility to 6,000, which would be extremely rare, but potentially it could happen, or mist, shall I say. In that case, it would not be reported. And this is true for haze, smoke, dust, and sand, any phenomena. If it reduces visibility below 5,000, then of course it will be reported in the matter. And then fog and mist, these are two water droplet related phenomena. Mist is when we have the visibility between 1 kilometer and 5 kilometers. Fog is anywhere below 1,000 meters. So in this case, if the visibility drops below 1 kilometer and it's water droplet related, it will be fog. Dust and haze will be reported as the visibility drops below 5 kilometers as well, for of course different reasons. And here also remember that the phenomenon that is the worst in case of visibility will be always snow, and more specifically blowing snow or heavy snow. The blowing snow can reduce the visibility from 1 to 50 meters. So snow, generally speaking, will reduce the visibility to 250 meters. These are the absolute worst. However, blowing snow is the worst phenomenon. So remember this for your questions. And now lastly, question number 5 about the radiation fog most frequently occurring when. So of course, we said before, the radiation fog cannot be created over sea, because the variations in temperatures throughout the day and night are not enough for the fog to occur, for the temperature to drop below the dew point. So we can already discard the answers with the sea. Now the question is about low or high pressure systems. So generally speaking, high pressure systems will be associated with the lack of clouds, whereas the low pressure systems might have some more clouds. Of course, generally speaking, for the radiation fog to be created, we need a relatively calm and cloudless night, so that the surface, the ground, can easily radiate the heat out into the sky, into the cosmos, and cool down. If we have clouds, then the heat will be the long wave, the infrared waves will be bouncing out of the clouds back to the surface, and the surface cooling will be greatly delayed, and that makes the high pressure systems over land the correct answer here. And lastly, I just wanted to mention a little thing about the Arctic smoke, as I believe this is the only type of fog that we didn't address throughout this video. So remember, the Arctic smoke is the opposite of the advection, or vice versa. So Arctic smoke is, we have hot body of water or warmer body of water and a colder air. Think about a hot cup of tea, and this is exactly the phenomena here. A hot cup of tea you always see as you go out to your balcony, or hot chocolate, that it will produce some condensation, some water vapor, and this is exactly what a Arctic smoke is. However, on a larger level, it will create a very shallow and low level of fog. And this will be everything for today's video. I hope you found it interesting. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out and we'll do our best to answer. But if not, I wish you a fantastic week ahead and all the best with your meteorology exams or any other exams that you're preparing for. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.